My name is Serena and welcome back to the Booked Movie Club. Today I am so excited for us to be talking about the Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat. I have been looking forward to watching this movie since I saw the trailer a couple of months ago, and reading it was such a joy as well. So I'm excited to talk about this with you all today, and I hope you enjoy this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you would like to join the Booked Movie Club. Let's get into the book. The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat was written by Edward Kelsey Moore. He is an African-American author from Chicago, I believe. He was a musician. He used to be a classical celloist and I believe a music teacher before writing his debut novel, The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat. The book was published in 2013 and it was on the New York Times bestseller list, as well as the winner of the first novelist award from the Black Caucus of the American Library Association. Edward's follow-up to The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat was actually a sequel to this book titled The Supremes Sing the Happy Heartache Blues. I have yet to read that, but I might have to. This book was beautiful, and so I might be picking that up from the library next. While I was reading this book, I couldn't help but feel reminded of the movies Now and Then, as well as the Divine Sisterhood, what is it called? Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood. This reminded me of that because it's about a group of friends and it's going back and forth between present day and the challenges that they're experiencing as 55-year-old women, mothers, wives, trying to figure out their lives, as well as their past. They're from the moments they were born and how they grew up in the world. And so that back and forth and that style of writing really reminded me of those two films. And I think that is a great kind of company to be in. Those are really good movies. This was a really good book. And I'm sure the movie will also be fantastic. But again, let's talk about the book. So this book is about three best friends, Odette, Barbara Jean, and Clarice, and their experiences in present life challenges as well as their upbringing. When Big Earl, the owner of Earl's All You Can Eat, passes away, the women start to reflect on their past and figure out how to deal with the challenges they're currently experiencing. I really loved this book. I cried while reading it. So I read and listened to the audiobook, and I cried reading the pages myself. I cried listening to the audiobook. I laughed out loud multiple times. It is such an entertaining book, and it reminds me of what my grandmother's lives could have been like. Like, it feels like I am reading the journal, the diary of elder women in my life, and it was such a treat to feel that embrace and kind of, I don't know, I've really connected to these characters and I loved every part of it. So I give this book a 4.5. There was something about it that just wasn't bringing it to a 5 for me. And I still don't know what it is. I just finished it this past week, and so I think I still need time to process. By the end of the year, it may become a 5-star, but right now I think I give it a 4.5. That is my spoiler-free little summary and thoughts about the book, but let's really get into the characters. I was trying to plan out how to tell their stories because a lot happens in this book. It discusses the lives of not only one character but three from birth till today, and they're 55 years old now, so there's a lot of stories to tell as well as stories of some side characters. So I'm gonna try and be as concise as possible as I tell these stories. Forgive me if they're a little confusing. I will get more into how each of their stories end when I'm comparing the book to the movie. So for now, we'll just talk about their past. I forgot to mention that Earl gives the girls the nicknames the Supremes just for being fly, for showing up. He's like, you're the Supremes at Earl's because you guys are just a fly group of women, or young women at the time. So it doesn't have anything to do with the group, the Supremes, which I saw a TikTok when the trailer first came out, and somebody was like, I don't know why they had to make this movie and include earls. Like, why couldn't the movie just be about the Supremes? And I hope that he was trolling. I don't know if he was serious, but anyway, I thought that was really funny. But let's start with Odette. The book opens with Odette, and that first chapter really got me hooked. So she wakes up in the middle of the night and goes into her kitchen. She's having a hot flash, going through menopause. She goes to the kitchen to cool off, and her mom is there visiting. And so she has this conversation with her mom, and her mom lets her know that Earl has passed away. Her mom sees ghosts, and so I love this book. Her mom sees ghosts, and so shares with Odette that Earl has visited her. But then we learn at the end of that chapter, as Odette's mom is leaving from her middle of the night visit, that her mom is also a ghost, and that Odette sees ghosts. So going back to the start of Odette's life, she was born in a sycamore tree. Now this took place because her mom was heavily pregnant. She's like past 9 months, past 40 weeks, ready to deliver. It's not happening. And so her mom goes to visit a witch, and the witch tells her to climb a sycamore tree, sing her favorite hymn, and the baby would come. And that's exactly what she did. So her mother gave birth by herself in a sycamore tree and accidentally knocked down the ladder she used to get up there in the process. And so she sat in the tree with a newborn baby for hours until her husband came home and could bring her down from this tree. There's a quote in the book that says, the people who love her say that that is why she is such a strong and powerful woman, and the people who hate her say that's why she's mannish. So she is a very interesting character, a very strong woman, a protector of everyone that she loves, and just a beautiful story that I could cry thinking about. So as I said, Odette sees ghosts, and usually it's her mom visiting, but when people are going to die, Eleanor Roosevelt's ghost visits her as well. And this happens multiple times, and she finally understands why, because she goes to see her doctor and she is diagnosed with cancer. That scene is when I first cried, and it broke my heart and made me laugh at the same time. So when Odette finds out that she has cancer, she is planning on doing all this treatment behind everyone's back. She's scheduling doctor's appointments for when her husband has to work late, and does not plan on telling her friends Barbara Jean and Clarice, but her husband catches on. He is aware that something is wrong, and so finally sits her down and is like, you need to tell me what's going on, and obviously I'm going to be there for you. So through her treatment, the love that James has for her husband, really shows, and her friends can see it, and it's really one of the most beautiful parts of this book is seeing Odette's relationship with her husband. Up next is Barbara Jean, who was born on the couch of a local woman, a random woman's house. When Barbara Jean was in utero, I don't know why I said it like that, her mom was hoping that she would be the second child to be born at the newly desegregated university hospital, but the labor happened so quickly that she isn't able to make it, and while trying to call to get a ride to the hospital, her mom gives birth on a neighbor's couch. We learn that Barbara Jean's mom was trying to trick 4 men into believing that they were all Barbara Jean's father, so that she can collect checks from all of them. She's like, I'm not trying to ruin your marriages. Just send me money and no one will ever know. Unfortunately, 2 of the men realize the game that she's playing, and they're like, we're not giving you any money. So she can only get checks from 2 men. But one of the men who found out was actually the father, but he didn't want anything to do with her after finding this out. So Barbara Jean is raised by a single mother, trying to figure things out, date some inappropriate men who Odette has to kind of rescue her from over the course of their relationship and their childhood. And as Barbara Jean is growing up, she knows the importance of marrying a man who can provide a stable life. So when she falls in love with a white man who works for Earl at the restaurant, she is in a really tough position because she knows it can't work. There's still segregation, there's still laws around Black people and white people marrying each other, being in relationships. So as much as Barbara Jean loves this man named Chick, she unfortunately has to consider the proposal from a man named Lester. He's an older gentleman who drives a nice car, is always pulling up in front of Earl's All You Can Eats, trying to show it off. And while everyone is checking out his car, he is checking out Barbara Jean, okay? So Chick, Barbara Jean's first love, finds out that Lester has proposed to Barbara Jean and that she's considering it. And he's heartbroken because she won't run off with him to get married. So he leaves. While he's fleeing town, Barbara Jean finds out that she's pregnant with his child. But once she realizes that he is left, she feels she doesn't have many options. So when Lester approaches her and proposes again, she acknowledges her pregnancy with another man's child, and Lester decides to accept her and the baby as his own, and they end up getting married. Lester and Barbara Jean live a very happy life together until their son is sadly murdered in a hit and run. He is killed by Chick's brother, and Barbara Jean believes that it was completely intentional because she had her brother's child, and there's this biracial child running around town that the brother doesn't want any part of. When she finds out that her son has been killed, she goes to Chick, who has recently returned to town, and tells him that he needs to take care of his brother for killing their child. Chick is like, I didn't even know that was my son. That's wild. But yeah, the next day we find out that Chick's brother is dead, and Barbara Jean is so riddled with guilt, not only for the loss of her child, but thinking that she convinced a man to kill his brother. She becomes an alcoholic. She drowns all of her sorrows in drinking, and there's, it's easily disguised when her husband Lester is there to help, but when he passes away, she now has to deal with the grief of her son, her husband, and her alcohol addiction, as well as figuring out her feelings for Chick. So there is a lot going on in Barbara Jean's life, a lot of sadness and heartache, but hopefully some repair. We'll talk about that later. But last but not least, we have Clarice, who is married to Richmond Baker. So growing up, Clarice was born, she was the first Black baby born in University Hospital, which was recently desegregated. She was raised by a very religious mother and was an extremely talented pianist who was offered an opportunity to record a demo in like New York or something. But when Richmond returns to town wanting to marry her, she gives up that dream to become a wife and mother. She is warned by her good friend Odette that Richmond is a terrible, philandering he's a cheater, and Odette's like, you should not marry him, but Clarice is like, I'm doing whatever I want. Knowing that he is a cheater, she still, again, marries him and thinks that it'll be okay. As long as she doesn't see or hear or know about anything, it's going to be fine. But his cheating gets worse and worse as their marriage progresses. And eventually, at the wise age of 55, she finally leaves him. And so now she has to figure out life for herself as a single woman, but also if she actually wants to be a single woman. There's a lot of pressure from her mother and her pastor to forgive Richmond and accept all of his actions. And she's like, no, I want to focus on my piano and live my best life. And so that's where we have Clarice, Odette, and Barbara Jean. I'm going to go watch the movie, see what it's saying. If I come back on here crying, then you'll just have to accept that. As I mentioned, I'll be comparing these characters' endings once I've seen the movie, but I'm so excited. It's out right now, so I'm literally gonna go watch it, and I'll be back in a couple of hours. I'm back. I just finished the movie, and I'm happy to report that I only cried one time. So let me give myself a pat on the back for that one. I forgot to mention earlier that this book is contemporary fiction, historical fiction. I don't really I have a bone to pick about labeling books historical fiction, because in my brain they have to do with something important in history, but apparently that's not the case. So before we get into my thoughts on the movie, let's talk about the cast and the crew a little bit. I need my notes for this. So the film was directed by Tina Mabry, who also was part of writing for and directing episodes of Queen Sugar. She also directed Mississippi Damned, which I think I've seen, but it's been a really long time. The screenplay was co-written by the director, Tina Mabry, and C. Marcellus, who was also credited for co-writing the screenplay for Napoli Ever After. The cast, it's a large cast. I'm only going to talk about the main people, because there are a lot of people. Aunjanue, ellis-taylor plays the role of Odette. Sanaa Lathan plays Barbara Jean. Uzo Aduba plays Clarice. And then Mekhi Phifer, who I love to see, plays James, Odette's husband. Vondie Curtis Hall plays Lester. Russell Hornsby played Richmond. Now there are a group of young actors who played the younger version of them as well, but if I listed off the whole cast, we'd be here all night. But everyone did a fantastic job. I loved everyone's acting, I think, except for the guy who plays young chick. He wasn't my favorite, but everyone else was fantastic. So the film opens with Odette sitting under the tree that she was born in. She's sitting under a magnolia tree. Was it a magnolia tree? Can't remember. She's sitting under a tree in a hospital gown, and she is not looking well. We then flash back to Odette, Barbara Jean, and Clarice, and the story of how all of them were born. So it goes back to the past, and I was kind of hoping, in the movies that I mentioned before, Now and Then and Divine Yaya Sisterhood, that it starts in the present and then there's something that makes them flash back to their past. That's how it happens in the book. They're all at Earl's, and then the book actually goes between first person and third person, and it flashes back from past to present. So there's a lot happening. And to simplify that, in the movie, they just went back to they start in the past. But I wish it would have been like them coming together, because again, in the book, Earl passes away, and that it feels like that is what triggers this kind of reflection about their past. So I kind of wish that's how it would have gone in the movie, but small complaint, nothing wrong with what they did. I believe the characters are a little bit younger in the movie. One of the characters refers to them as being almost 50, and I think in the book, I think they're a little bit older. I'm pretty sure they were like around 55 in the book. Another change was around Barbara Jean's pregnancy and her finding out. So in the book, she doesn't tell anyone that she's pregnant when she first finds out. She wants to tell Chick, but he has already left. And then she sees Lester, he proposes, and she tells him that she is pregnant with Chick's baby. In the movie, Barbara Jean confides in Clarice and Odette, and they're talking about her options. She goes to Chick and tries to see if they can really be in a relationship, but then his brother shows up being racist, and she's like, absolutely not, cannot do this. And so she leaves him. I'm not sure, I don't think she tells him that, he doesn't know that she was pregnant. She just decides to leave, and then she runs into Lester, and she lets Lester know, like, I'm pregnant, and he's like, this is now our baby. So that's kind of how that happened. Another change is that Odette starts her cancer treatment without telling anyone. I believe in the book, James, her husband, realizes that something is wrong before she has the chance to start treatment. But I'm not, you can fact check me. But another thing that was missing is that there are no ghosts. Now, this is not a ghost story, but Odette seeing ghosts is a big part of her story, her life, her family, and that is completely removed. I thought there was going to be a point where there is a flashback and Odette is talking to her mom, and it almost felt like that was going to be the moment when they were like, actually her mom has already passed away, but that wasn't it. And so there weren't any ghosts, and I think that kind of takes away from everyone kind of getting some closure about things that they needed closure on, but I'll get to that in a second. Another difference, so Clarice knows that her husband is cheating, but she never approaches anyone. She tries to stay cool, calm, and collected until she decides to leave. In the movie, she does approach this woman named Cherokee that Richmond is having an affair with, and that kind of felt a little messy. Like, I feel like these women are really girls, and so approaching the other women felt a little out of character, but you know, whatever. Finally, my one big complaint is that because this book was turned into a movie, I believe it's around 2 hours long, the repair for Clarice and Barbara Jean's characters isn't shown. So in the book, Clarice leaves Richmond, and he really works hard. First, he tries to manipulate her into getting back with him. He brings the pastor, he brings her mom, and then finally he's like, okay, I actually have to change. And he ends up sending old records of Clarice playing the piano to this guy who was trying to give her a record deal before, and sets her up to be able to record music, and that is what helps to initiate their connection. He does something similar in the movie, but it isn't as, we're not able to see all of the anger and then acceptance and then repair that comes in their relationship in the movie, and I think that was unfortunate. Also, Barbara Jean in the book goes to AA, has a sponsor who calls her out because she's like, well, as long as I'm only drinking 3 glasses of wine instead of 6, I'm doing much better. And her sponsor is like, ma'am, you're drunk right now. So she finally, like in the book, she goes to AA, she gets better, and then pursues a relationship with Chick when she finds out that he's back in town. And another beautiful part, because Odette sees the ghost of Barbara Jean's husband kind of appears to Odette and asks her to tell Barbara Jean that he's sorry for like taking advantage of the situation. He knows that she was kind of desperate for something when she was pregnant, and he proposed to her. There's a huge age gap. If you look at the actors' ages in the movie, it's a 20-year age gap. It could also be true. She could have been 18. He was maybe 38 in the book. I'm not sure exactly. But he knows that there was this power dynamic and all of these things that maybe left her in the position to have to choose him rather than wanting to choose him. And so the ghost wants Odette to tell Barbara Jean these things. But because ghosts aren't a part of this movie, that closure doesn't happen. There's no conversation about what that experience was like. In the book, she's like, please, you loved me. You loved our child. I loved you. All of those things. It was very beautiful. But yeah, that wasn't in the movie, and I wish it would have been. But like the book, Barbara Jean does reconnect with Chick and finds out that he did not kill his brother. In the movie, he says that his brother was abusing his partner, and she probably, to protect herself, was the one that ended up shooting him. So that relieved a lot of guilt that Barbara Jean has been carrying around. Last but not least, Odette. As we know, she was diagnosed with cancer, is seeing and talking to ghosts and all of the things. And she is in a coma, comes out of the coma, and asks Richmond, because he's all big and strong, to carry her to the tree that she was born in. He takes her to the wrong tree, but that doesn't matter because she ends up surviving. She beats cancer. And at the end, the friends are again at Earl's all you can eat, catching up, living life, enjoying each other's company. I really enjoyed the movie. I do think it should have been a mini series just so you could get a more well-rounded view of all of these characters' lives, because it's not just about Odette. She obviously plays a big part, but all of them have experienced so many things, and it's beautiful in the book to be able to read about all of those things, and you don't really get the connection with all of them in the movie the way that you do the book. So when we ask ourselves the age-old question, which was better, you may have guessed it, I'm gonna say the book, of course, just because there is more depth and there's more to know, there's more to love, there's more to hate, there's more tears, there's more laughter. There's one scene in the book that is about, so Clarice's cousin, or Clarice's niece, is getting married. And the mom is like, took the daughter to a hypnotist so that she can lose weight in time for the wedding. And the wedding is a hot mess. It's in July in the South. It's 90 degrees. Everything goes wrong. And it's just a very funny part of the book. And I remember when I finished reading it, I was like, oh, I hope this wedding is in the movie. But it wasn't, unfortunately. So yes, I think is a lot that has to be removed in order to make it fit into one movie. And if it had been a mini-series or a limited series, we could have just gotten more out of it and loved these characters even more. And I think that would have made this fantastic. But regardless, I'm so glad that I got to watch this. I loved every part of reading this, and I think you all should read and watch The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat. So go watch it. I'm sure there are so many important things that I did not talk about in this video. So if you have anything to add, go ahead and put it in the comments. Let's talk about how fantastic this book and movie were, and I'll see you there.